So what's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about log drums and how to make them hit harder, or really how to make any sound hit harder, because everything I'm explaining in this video can be applied to just about any sound in just about any software in my opinion. Now most of us have probably been in this situation before. You know, you're trying to make a beat or mix a song, and for whatever reason the log drum or whatever sound it is just not hitting as hard as you want it to, and you keep on increasing the volume and it's getting louder but it's not hitting as hard as you want it to hit. So today we're going to be looking at how to overcome that. So I have this beat I made a while ago here, and I'm going to show you my thought process as to how I made the log drums, hit hard. So this is what we have going on. And I mean, the log drum sounds okay, but nothing compared to the after. You can hear it's like day and night. Now, how did I get the log drum to sound like that? A bunch of different things. First thing you need to keep in mind is your sound design and your sound selection. This is DDX10 by Dead Dog Software. It's the synth plugin I use for my log drums, and this is what the stock log sounds like. It's very dead and there's not really much going on. Compare that to the log drum that I made, even with all the effects off. As you can tell, the sound I'm using, even though they are both log drums, it has kind of a different character to it. It has a lot more decay, and then the initial punchiness of the log drum is a bit more. Now, I'm not going to get into the exact specifics of what knobs you should change because everyone is using different plugins. Like me now, I'm using DDX10. You might be using Fruity DX10 or the log drum VST, or you might even be using a sample or some other plugin. It really doesn't matter, but just try and get your hands on other log drum presets. And if you're like me and you want to make one yourself, you can actually try and play around with the different parameters and see what that gives you. Like this now, if I change the initial, it has a bit more of a zappy quality to it. Put that back to where it was before. If I take this now and I change the sustain, that sounds obviously very different. Change the decay, also very different. Sounds more wide, That's the actual log drum itself. Now getting into the actual, the effects that make the log drum sound a lot louder. I'm going to first of all try and explain the thought process between what I'm using and why. Now the underlying principle behind all this stuff is to take advantage of perceived loudness. And if you don't know what perceived loudness is, it's basically how loud things sound and how loud they feel, as opposed to, how loud they read on the meter. Because a lot of the time, those two things are not the same. And how do you do that? Now there are a lot of ways that you can increase the perceived loudness of a sound, but for log drum specifically, I'm going to be mainly talking about two. Now the first way to do that is to increase the harmonic information, and I'm going to use my trusty guitar here to explain how that works. So if I play like just the most random thing now, you can hear how that sounds, as opposed to if I put on this low pass filter now. You hear how quiet that got? Like it's muffled, but it is also sounding more quiet. But if you look at the meter, you'll notice that the volume is still the same. I've not changed the volume at all, but it sounds quieter. Why? Because this low pass version is covering less frequencies and it has less harmonic information. So you get the idea of it. That's basically how harmonic information affects perceived loudness. The more frequencies something covers, the louder it will sound. So if you want something to sound louder, you just need to increase the harmonic information by adding more frequencies. Does that make sense? I hope it does, but just hold on to that thought for now, because there's still a second thing we're going to use to increase the harmonic information, and that's dynamics, or more accurately, the reduction of dynamics. Let me explain.
Let me tell you something. All right. Let me tell you something.
So on this track, I have a bell sound. Now watch what happens when I take this bell sound and I decide to kill the dynamics completely by compressing them down to nothing and increasing the ratio to like infinity. Now you're probably thinking, that sounds a lot quieter. And you're right, but watch what happens when I increase the output gain to match the original volume. You hear that? All of a sudden the bell is a lot fuller, a lot thicker, and it's hitting a lot harder, despite the fact that it's at the same volume. Here's before, and here is after. You can see it's still at the same volume, but because of the fact that we've swatched the dynamics, the sound now spends a longer time at its loudest volume, and it comes off as sounding louder, despite the fact that it's still at the same volume. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You can always increase the perceived loudness of a sound by reducing its dynamics. Sponsored segment. This is for those of you who want to go fully in depth into learning music production. My friend Ryan Hartega, who you know from songs like has put together a music production course that teaches you everything you need to know, from the theory of music to the concept of music to the business of music. Now, there are two versions of this course. There's a mini version that gives you a more broad understanding of the whole thing, and then there's a more in-depth version that goes into the nitty-gritty details of explaining everything to you. It comes together with a calendar and even exercises and tests that you can take as you complete the course. The course even comes with a certificate that you get when you complete it. Now, you might be thinking, music production courses are a scam. I don't need them because I can learn everything on YouTube. While it may be true you can learn everything for free on the internet, the fact of the matter is that you cannot downplay the importance of having a structured and complete learning program that takes you from start to finish and guides you every step of the way. This will make it way easier for you to learn things and progress more quickly than if you were just researching by yourself on the internet. I've gone through the course materials myself, and I can tell you that my journey of becoming a music producer wouldn't have taken as nearly as long as it did if I had something like this available to me. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your potential by clicking the link in my description to get started. By the way, it's also an affiliate link, meaning that I get a small commission from those of you that buy the course, and it's a great way to help out the channel. Now back to the video. Now, keeping those two principles in mind, let me now walk you through the effects and techniques that I use to make my log drums hit harder. So first off, we have Camel Crusher. This is one of my favorite plugins in this world that I can't live without. It's like a distortion, compression, EQ plugin all rolled into one. I'm using distortion, both tube distortion and mech distortion. Now, first of all, distorting the sound makes it sound louder already, but it also increases the perceived loudness as well because it adds saturation and harmonic information to the sound while also squashing it a bit. If you listen well, you can hear those extra frequencies that it's adding. And then next up, I'll use some compression as well. This is one of my favorite things about Camel Crusher. It's an upwards compressor. So rather than squashing the dynamics by bringing down the low parts and then you now have to increase the volume later, it compresses by bringing out the louder parts. And last but not least, you have a filter with some resonance in the high end just to add a little bit of brightness and sparkle to the sound. Again, that increases the harmonic information and increases the perceived loudness. And then we get into plugin number 2, which is Cynamix's Diablo Light. And this is also coloring and saturating the sound by adding punchiness and clip distortion. And then on top of everything, I add some soft clip distortion as well as some stereo width with serum effects. And I use a utility plugin to sum the bass back into mono, just so it doesn't cause any stereo imaging issues. And then at the end of everything, I still have a limiter and a bit of compression on the master, just to add some drive and further squash things a bit more. Now, there's still some other minor stuff going on that you might want to pay attention to. For starters, if you notice, this entire beat is built around the log drum. So the drums, everything, they are just all hitting at the same time to help it, hit as hard as possible. I have this synth going on here. And on top of that, the kick is also following the pattern of the log drum. I also have some cymbals for extra emphasis. And of course, it's not amapiano without this crash. Another thing you can do to help is also the arrangement. If you notice, right before the drop here, I cut out everything for like a split second, except for just this, vocal one shot, just to give it a bigger impact. So when you now take all these things together, you now put a limiter on the master to properly squash everything down. That's when you now get that crunchy, hard-hitting amapiano log drum sound. One more. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if this video was helpful, and I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Yeah, bye-bye.